All right, and we are live.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, not all heroes wear capes. But today's guest is a certified hero. Matt,
How's it
welcome.
going? Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you coming, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate you coming. Matt, I'm getting into a habit of starting these podcasts with where I met people.
Sure.
And so I heard of you way before I actually got to talk to you.
Okay.
And I didn't realize, because I knew you were an inspection. You're a home inspector here in Winchester, Virginia.
Yes, sir.
But I didn't know that you also got into the radon business kind of suddenly. So I'm calling a company and I get Matt.
Yeah. Somebody you thought was someone else, and it was me.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. But yeah, you are you from Winchester?
So, pretty much, yeah. I was born in Amarillo, Texas, believe it or not. Moved here when I was like 2 years old.
Okay.
And then, grew up here. Went to school here, graduated from Jameswood High School, went to Radford University, pretty much been here my whole life. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think you just asked me off camera. I didn't have a chance to answer too much in depth, but yeah, I moved here 8 years ago. So
Okay.
you got a little more time than me. You know, it's funny because I meet so many people here now that are moving from Northern Virginia.
Right.
You know, I'm sure you meet them all the time as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't love that in Winchester, right?
Right.
A lot of people aren't too fond of that.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been, I've never been opposed to people moving to a great spot. I mean, we moved to Austin, Texas for a little while after, we got married. But I mean, we came back. It's an awesome place to live, great place to raise kids. I could see what the draw is. And, everything's changing. This town is completely different than even like when I graduated college and came back. I mean, just the 4 years of, back and forth. I mean, it was a completely different town, just in that short amount of time. So
yeah, I mean, every city you go to changes a lot, right? Like I'm excited to go back to Tampa to see a change, but coming out here, I thought it was a small town, which it depends on who you ask. It's relative, right?
Right, sure.
I remember coming down 7, I'm seeing all these cow pastures and all this stuff, and I'm like, dude, what am I doing, man?
Where are we
like,
going?
I'm a city guy. This is not going to end well. And turns out I love this place.
Yeah,
I love this place, and I won't move.
It's a great spot, and I hope that not too many people are frowning on new people coming to the area, because that's what makes us Winchester. That's what a little bit of change that never hurt anybody. So
yeah. I mean, it just kind of is, right? Like that's kind of like the natural way things goes. Like if you live near a giant city center like Washington D.C.,
right,
where there's high-paying jobs and a lot of people,
Yep.
people just kind of go outwards,
Yeah, you're gonna get tired of the city at some point, and that doesn't mean you're gonna leave the city forever. But it's nice. I've been doing a lot of inspections for folks that are just buying little like vacation homes, whether it's like in the in the mountains around here, buying a little cabin, something like that, or out just shy of us from West Virginia, something like that. But a lot of vacation homes down the river. I mean, we got a lot of outdoor activities to offer, things like that, to that people can just kind of escape that hustle and bustle of the city life. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I think there's a lot I didn't know about home inspections until I got into the business, and one of them is that you don't just do. So let's actually talk about this. A lot of people might not know what a home inspector does, right? So how would you describe your job?
Sure. I'd say that, probably 90% of what I'm doing is people have just put an offer in on a house. Offer's been accepted. They have, due diligence period to basically get the house checked out, make sure it's an investment they want to move into. I come through essentially, checking all the structural, mechanical, everything about the house, basically, just to give them an idea what kind of condition the house is in. Are there any structural issues? Did Cousin Eddie do the electrical or something in the house? Things that might be hidden. You go into buying a house and you'll say, okay, well, everything looks beautiful. I love it. But I'm kind of there to be the impartial, set of eyes to tell you, okay, well, these things you might want to focus on, or maybe budget for this instead of that new kitchen you're hoping for. And then essentially just giving them the tools to make an informed decision. So.
Right on. Yeah, what's impressive to me about home inspectors is, and I've been in the trades, right?
Sure.
And I know a little bit about this, but as a home inspector, you almost have to know a little bit about everything, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're not just trained under one thing. We're not an expert at plumbing or something like that. Yeah, we're required to have knowledge on all of the different trades. We look at plumbing, electrical, HVAC, roofing, exterior, just about everything. So yeah, being able to kind of dip your toes into each side of that is definitely a good idea to have somebody like that on your side when you're purchasing a house, just so they can kind of steer you in the right direction.
So I'm curious, how did you actually get into this field? I mean, was this what you kind of want to do when you were growing up, or did you have other plans and kind of fell into it?
Yeah, not necessarily something I thought I'd be doing. My dad growing up was a big time, do-it-yourselfer. He was a guy who could do pretty much anything, which I think that kind of rubbed off on me. But my background is actually in, communication and marketing. Yeah, my degree is communication and public relations, which is kind of what my dad was originally in as well. Mostly in the healthcare field, kind of also where he was, and kind of came to the point where I wasn't super happy in that role. And my dad was like, if that's something you want to get out of, go ahead and do it. And over time, my father-in-law is a general contractor. We got some uncles, they're contractors as well, and just working with them and kind of learning actually in depth the trades, things like that, is what kind of drove me to want to do it. And then we were purchasing a house in Texas, and I got to go through the home inspection process, and I was like, okay, this is awesome. It's something I could get into. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's kind of how I fell into it, I guess. So
yeah. Now, one, it's kind of a side note. I keep looking at these homes in Texas on Instagram.
Oh yeah,
and man, you get so much house down in in Texas. And okay, I gotta ask. So, do you think it's just why is that such a big difference? Is it like the legal system down there? Is it like a labor thing? Is it just material costs are lower? Because you can get a whole McMansion in Texas on acres and acres for like $350,000, $400,000.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is, obviously land prices, and the style of house and how much it costs to build, like you were saying. Out in Texas, it was a lot, almost exclusively like houses on a slab. So, you're not having to, dig down for a basement, do all that. So it's a little bit easier footprint. You pour your concrete slab, walls go up, easier process. They'd use a lot of stone and stuff like that out there, which is naturally mined, in Texas and out west, things like that. So I think just access to the supplies and obviously, and of course, the land values, things like that. But yeah, it was a lot of people were moving from California when I was in Austin.
Dude, yeah, even now, I think a lot of people are running the hell away from those taxes in Cali, and Austin blew up, as a tech center and everything like that.
Absolutely.
I think I listened to a little bit too much Joe Rogan. He talks about that a lot.
Yeah.
You listen to any podcasts?
Not a ton. I usually, if I am, they're probably, they're home inspection podcasts, things like that, where I'm just, kind of refreshing, getting new information, technology about home inspections. A lot of people tell me I should be listening to podcasts, but I'm pretty busy, so I don't have a lot of time to sit down. But I do a lot of driving, so I should probably start.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? If you're in the car and you're commuting a ton.
Yeah.
And I do the same, by the way, for my business. I've actually listened to a lot of home inspection podcasts too, so I think it's fascinating. I like to know about homes, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you're in the car, like I'm in the car a lot, you're in the car a lot. It just makes sense. You can't like freaking read a book coming down 81.
Yeah.
I guess you could, but that would be kind of
yeah, it may be dangerous. People, I don't have a Tesla or anything, so it can't self-drive for me. But I think a lot of what deters me is I probably get 30, 40, 50 sometimes phone calls and text messages a day. So it's just like the thought of, being in the middle of a podcast and just always having to like redirect is, I don't know.
It's tough.
Crazy,
it's tough. Yeah, you're a busy guy, man. You're a busy guy. I'd like to say that I call you more for inspections, but I think I tried a few times and you are booked out.
Well, yeah,
solid, which is a good sign. Means you're obviously doing something right.
Yeah, we're staying busy. Added on another inspector recently. He's doing weekends, so that's been good. The radon mitigation business is been steady. So yeah, I probably am busier than I really am, just based off of like, where I'm driving that day and just doing estimates and, stuff like that. But no, we're staying busy, staying steady. Can't complain. So
yeah, your reviews definitely show that you've got a lot of happy customers. But I was actually looking at them, and what's funny is, and you know where I'm going, right?
Yeah,
you know where I'm going.
Yeah, absolutely.
You always get that one person that has to like just be a complete and leave you a bad review. But from your side, I'll let you speak on this, right?
Sure, yeah.
I'll let you go ahead and speak on this. But who's most likely to give you a bad review in your business?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be number one is a seller who's, peeved that I called something out, or, maybe their deal fell through. And it's hard because, you gotta, you want to be respectful when you're in somebody else's home. I don't feel like I've ever just purposefully done something to ruin a deal or, called out something false. But there's always that person who says, okay, well, he killed the deal. He doesn't know what he's talking about, something like that. I actually had a review, one of my negative reviews, I think is a 1 star or whatever, where the person was like, they were watching me with Ring video cameras and stuff through the house. They were like, he got up in the attic, a little bit of insulation fell. He cleaned it up pretty good. Then he was looking at stuff for a really long time with a flashlight, and I was like, "Yeah, that's what I do as a home inspector. Those are literally the things that I'm doing in a home." So I don't know. They just went on there and were trying to bash me, and I was it's just one of those things.
It happens, man. There's always that one guy, but yeah, your reputation speaks volumes. Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate it. Worked really hard to get a good online review base and just be seen in the community, and because it's not easy, especially starting out,
Yeah, I mean it's a whole business, right? It's not like
Right.
And now let me ask you this: did you start with your own business, or did you kind of have like a mentor? Did somebody kind of bring you into it? Did you work for another company first?
Sure. Yeah, I worked for another company, actually in Texas. So Austin Property Inspections. The owner over there, Gary Hart, he actually was the guy that did the inspection on my house that I talked about earlier, that we were purchasing. And so that's when I kind of got into it. And I said, "Hey, are you hiring? You doing anything like that?" And he's got, at any time, he's probably got between 5 and 7 inspectors underneath him. The process in Texas was you have to, mentor under somebody. I think I did 50 ride-alongs with him.
50?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So Texas is one of the hardest states to get licensed as a home inspector.
Gotcha.
They have a state and federal regulations that they have to do the state and federal exam. They have a very strict, their own standards of practice that you have to follow, all that stuff. But he's the guy that basically, was like, "All right, let's do it. I'll support you. You just got to follow me along for the inspections and make it happen." So.
What's interesting to me also is there's actually a lot of stuff you can't do, right? There's a lot of rules. There's like an association of I forget the name. If you want
the association I'm a part of is ASHI. It's American Society of Home Inspectors. It's one of the older associations in the country. But yeah, they have a set standards of practice that we follow. Basically says the things we're allowed to, basically the minimum standards, what we can do. And then, of course, it has the limitations, everything like that, stuff we're not allowed to do. Obviously, we can't, pull siding off the outside of a house or open up, drywall inside. Anything destructive we're not allowed to do. Anything that's, they say, readily accessible, we're allowed to open or get into, look at. We can only run in normal operating controls as far as like heating and appliances and stuff like that. We're not supposed to do like, run clothes washing machine, something like that. We're supposed to put it in normal mode, let it roll.
But then another one is like you can't say the M word, right?
Right. Yeah. Can't say mold. Can't cite code. So that's one thing that people are always like, "Oh, you're gonna comment about all these codes and what's not up to code and stuff." I was like, "Well, we're trained to know the majority of the codes that we're going to come across while we're inspecting, a finished home." But we cannot legally cite, that a code reference and say this is not up to code. That's a no-no as well. But yeah, mold is the big one. Everybody's like, "Oh, it's mold. It has to be called, an organic substance or, discoloration, a growth, organic growth, whatever." But yeah, there's some funny guidelines.
What's interesting is I guess like you kind of mentioned being in Texas, and one thing I didn't know about Virginia is that it is extremely rich in freaking uranium, which
Yep.
A lot of people don't know what the implications of that is. So if you will.
Right, sure. So, talking about radon, obviously, which is the breakdown of the uranium, basically from the rock in the ground. If the EPA is the organization that's kind of in control of what they consider a safe level. So if you looked at an EPA's map of where the hot spots of radon are, us in the valley right here, are right in the red zone. So chances are, if you got a house with a basement, you got, you're probably going to have high radon, even some slab houses, crawl spaces, stuff like that. But yeah, it's just a gas. It's naturally occurring. It's odorless. You can't see it, you can't taste it, can't smell it. Just coming up through the ground. It's a heavier gas. So typically, the way to determine what your radon level is, do a radon test. You want to test on the lowest level of the house, lowest livable level. So like if you got a basement.
But why do we test for it? Let's go back a bit. Why do we test for it?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So radon is the number one cause of lung cancer in non-smokers in America. So long-term exposure to radon can lead to lung cancer. So that's why, you would want to potentially do a radon test. You could test whenever you want. Most of the time, folks are ordering a radon test when they're doing a home inspection as well. They kind of go hand in hand. Just to determine, okay, do we have safe levels, which, for a real estate transaction, EPA says 4.0 or higher, you should have a mitigation system placed in. 3.9 or below, they say, oh, you're fine.
Yeah.
They don't actually say that, but that's kind of the guidelines.
Right, that's the guidelines. Anything above 4, they recommend a mitigation system, right? So, it's funny. I mean, I'm not planning on mining plutonium or anything, right? Or whatever the stuff is, but I had no idea there was so much uranium in the soil here. And, what's interesting to me is I didn't, a lot of people don't understand how to put that system in because we've seen bad systems on our end, and I imagine you see it all the time, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, part of my business is we install radon mitigation systems. But yeah, I mean, I would say, obviously we put in tons of systems, every day, but we actually have a lot of systems that we basically have to come through and correct. A lot of folks think it's as easy as sticking a PVC pipe down in the slab, running it outside, putting a fan on. But you get into certain situations where things are really finicky and that doesn't work. And then it's kind of like, if you're not properly trained, what do I do next is the question. So is there a way to get it down? Some folks are like, well, we put the system in, I guess, we're just kind of stuck. We just have it now. But there are a lot of kind of scientific,
because it's like about the airflow, the inflow, and it can concentrate in one area. And that's just the basics. But I remember the one that you did for a client. You did the retest after putting it in, and it still tested a little too high, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
then again, you got to come back in, and I know you guys guarantee everything that you do, right?
Yep, so definitely.
It's interesting. But let's switch it up a little bit. Let's switch it up. All right. We don't want to be hard selling Williams Inspection, WilliamsInspectionServices.com.
You're right.
Too hard, let's see. What's a good question for you here? All right, let's go this way. If you could live anywhere in the world, anywhere, in any kind of home, especially, where would you be?
Gosh, definitely near the water somewhere. I'm a big time fisherman. I've always loved fishing.
Saltwater, freshwater?
I love it all. Right now I'm on a saltwater fishing kick.
My man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Gosh, there's something about saltwater fishing. It's like, you don't know what you're going to catch sometimes. You can catch just about anything. But anywhere in the world, probably somewhere on the water, but maybe over in Europe somewhere.
Oh, you ever been?
Been to Italy. My wife and I backpacked through Italy for about a month, pre-children. And it was awesome. And I know there's so many other cool places to go over, in Europe and just out of the country. But for whatever reason, I'm just like, man, I just want to go back to Italy. It was just that awesome of an experience to me. So yeah, maybe somewhere on the coast in Italy. I don't know what the fishing's like over there. It's probably awful, but
yeah, I don't know. Most times I see people go to Italy. We actually had a mutual friend, Paul Gallagher, who's just over there. He definitely wasn't fishing. He was probably eating fish.
Oh man, I was drooling just watching, following him on Facebook. He was posting pictures, every day. I was like, oh man, all the food looks so good. The views are awesome.
I know, the food especially. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I love food. So that's probably part of the draw that I'm like, I want to go back to Italy and just eat all the pasta and pizza and all the good stuff. But
well, you're in a lot of homes, right? Whether in Texas, whether you're here, what kind of house you would buy? Even if you could put it in Italy, if you could put it in the mountain, what are you into as
Yeah,
far as like architecture
sure.
and all that?
I really like kind of and this is gonna sound kind of cliche. I like the farmhouse like everybody's going with right now. I like a log cabin.
Yeah.
I don't like the maintenance that would come with it, but I like the idea of a log cabin, I guess I should say. Metal roof. The whole gamut. Hear the rain on the metal roof, something like that. But yeah, I mean, if I could, I would like to one day maybe look into getting my Class A contractor's license, actually building my own house, and just
wow.
basically taking all the best of all the things that I've learned about and found, and putting that into a house, and just having this basically fort of a home somewhere, whether
That's
it's
awesome.
on the water or what.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
yeah.
You ever looked into doing something along those lines, like on a business sense, like flipping properties, maybe, or maybe you've looked? 'Cause, I mean, you surely have a lot of connections, being in front of as many different people as you are, and you have a good eye for it.
Right, absolutely. I would enjoy doing that. We've got one rental here in Winchester, and then of course our house, and with my business, that keeps me pretty busy. But it'd be cool to have like a little bit of a portfolio sometime or something like that down the road, or really even just doing like the buying and flipping, rehabbing houses, that kind of thing. I feel like that would be pretty cool one day. Maybe if I retire or something, just get into that. But I would enjoy that, I feel like.
Yeah. I'm the same way. Me and Rex were looking at one the other day.
Okay.
And it's tough right now to find stuff, One
Sure.
thing about living in this area that a lot of people from Northern Virginia comment on is the inventory is so much older, right?
Yeah,
like you go down to Ashburn, like the average age of the homes is very different than even like a Sterling, but
Right.
you come to Winchester and you see kind of,
Significantly lower number.
yeah. So you would think that would offer you some more opportunities, but market being what it's been has been kind of crazy. But
Yeah.
So I have a client who's buying like a new construction home right now,
Mhm.
and it happens all the time.
Right.
They're like, why do I need an inspection when I'm buying a brand new house?
Sure.
And as I know, they definitely are not perfect over there in new construction land. So
Yeah.
do you do some of that? What have you seen on those? I mean,
Sure.
how much hate do you get? Or do you get hate mail from project managers?
Yeah. I mean, as far as like, folks leaving bad reviews, things like that, I'm sure if the project managers had my contact info, I'd get some of those as well. But and it's the same thing, they take pride in their work. And so they're like, well, this person's coming through and calling out all this stuff. But no, I mean, as far as new construction, definitely a good idea. I would say if you're having like a custom home, you're picking out everything, you've interviewed your builders and you're doing something like that, you might be safer bet, but like the stuff they're putting out real fast, definitely a good idea. They're still nice homes, but certain things get overlooked, right? You get so many people working on one thing, something's going to get missed, right? And a project manager can only be in so many units at one time. So,
Right.
And it's nothing personal on them. It's just, that's just what it's like right now. But some crazy stuff I've seen. I mean, I've seen, the furnace flue cap is just off. And so, maybe it's been raining leading up to closing and water's just been kind of falling down in through the attic. I actually did, probably the biggest thing I've ever found was pretty nice house out in Stephen City. Main structure in the basement, big steel I-beams. And that beam was completely torqued. It had, I don't know how it came out that way or how it got bent or what. And then the posts for it were leaning, and they literally, I mean, they went through and they replaced it. They redid it. So
Not cheap.
no,
Not
I mean,
cheap
they
at
had already
all.
started framing up top. So yeah, that was a thing. But not every new build is perfect by any means. So
Yeah. And kind of touched on what you talked about there is a lot of these project managers, they work for a large builder, right? And
Right.
with a lot of pressure on them, especially to
Sure.
get inventory out in the last couple of years, because there's
Yeah.
just been such a buying frenzy.
I mean, the deadlines are unrealistic, I feel like, for them in some instances. So that doesn't help.
Yeah, it doesn't. And I'm not gonna name any names. Like a lot of them complain about the kind of environment that they're in.
Oh, sure.
And again, not naming any names here, but you'd be surprised, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of bigger builders, and who suffers because of that? Because they
Yeah.
don't want to lose their job. It's
Exactly.
usually the buyer who doesn't know that. Like, hey, we had to rush a deadline. And so we brought in a bunch of outside crews that we've never worked with before to get this job done. And we had to use material that we wouldn't have normally used.
Uh-huh.
And
Yep.
they're just going to try to sneak it by you, And that's where I think having a home inspector, especially on a new construction, really any house you're buying, best case scenario, you got peace of mind.
Yeah.
And you find out you're buying a really good home.
Absolutely.
Which is what happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And worst case scenario, you got
some issues you got to deal with. And yeah, I mean, better to catch that, before you close, where the builder can still, maybe help you out with it than to, do it, move in and then have that issue, which, most of the builders around here put that 1 year warranty on the property too.
Right.
Actually do a lot of warranty inspections at like the 11th month.
Oh, really?
Where either they didn't get a home inspection when they closed, or maybe they did, but at the 11th month point, I'll come through, do another inspection, and then they can kind of provide that report to the warranty team and see what's covered, what's not. But yeah, it's just something that not a bad idea. So
yeah, I'm curious. Out of the new construction ones that you come out to, because there's 3 main phases on a new construction inspection, right?
Right.
Do you see that? Maybe you can express this like a percentage is 1 out of 5. How many people go for all 3, and how many people just have you come in right at the last minute?
I'd say the majority of folks just do the final. I'd say maybe 30-ish% will do like the whole deal with the pre-drywall and all that stuff. But I get a good percentage of folks that do the final, and then a lot of folks that will then do that warranty inspection.
Yeah.
But yeah, the pre-drywall is not a bad idea. Not as much of it going on.
Pre-drywall being like the house is framed.
Yeah,
the
they
electrical's up.
Got the trades came through right before they start putting up insulation and drywall. Just kind of do a once over of that, check the structure, make sure the walls aren't bowed, buckling, anything like that. Framing's not damaged, stuff like that. So
yeah, inspectors love saying, "I don't have X-ray vision," right?
Yeah, right.
So that's the one time
gives you the chance to have that X-ray vision.
That's the one time you can actually see through the walls because they're not up yet.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say that's probably maybe 30% of folks.
30%.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm I think for me, like I can't understand why people buy homes without a home inspection. I can't understand why people had to waive it in the last couple of years. It's been so competitive, right? They had to because in your contract you check that little box says, hey, this whole offer is contingent upon home inspection for this many days, right?
Sure. Yep.
But a lot of people had to say, especially in Northern Virginia, man, just wild. They had to waive that entirely, which is really scary, right? Which is like, hey, I walked into your house on a showing. I looked around. I know it's super competitive. So you as the seller, obviously, like the best case scenario for you is not to have a contingent on a home inspection. So it just, there's one less thing for you to worry about.
Absolutely.
Man, that is crazy to me. But I imagine you got called and asked a lot about like the walk and talk inspections, right?
Right. Yeah.
Can you explain what that is and how often that happened? And
So walk and talk inspections basically, someone will call you and say, hey, we're going to go check out some properties. There's a couple we were thinking we might put an offer on. Would you be interested in walking around? Just kind of like doing a quick glance. It's usually less than an hour. And you're just kind of looking at the major stuff, looking for any big issues, right? It's not, you don't get a report or anything out of it. It's basically like they're just kind of, paying for your time and your expertise to be able to look around and just say, okay, looks like a sound investment. Go ahead. Make an offer. Or, man, there's a couple of big things that I noticed just off the bat. So unless you're willing to fork out money for that, then I would say maybe go to the next house. I didn't do a ton of them. I stayed relatively busy, even with kind of the no contingency stuff, radon work or whatever it was, kept me busy. But I did a few of them. And it was a good option, I think, for folks. I felt really bad for specifically like the first-time home buyers, right? So people that have never been through that process, it was real desirable to buy a house. Interest rates were crazy low, and but yeah, I mean, they didn't have a lot of bargaining power. So I felt kind of bad for the folks like that. And a lot of those folks were the ones I think that were reaching out for that kind of an inspection. So
yeah, that's it's a hard conversation to have, tough situation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure as a real estate agent, it's like you don't want to tell them like no, but it's hard to be like, you're probably not going to win this house if you have a home inspection contingency. I totally understand that. That's hard to navigate those waters too, I'm sure. So
yeah, I found it difficult, but it's like, at the end of the day, the way I think of it is I'm doing you a complete disservice if I'm not giving you the reality of the situation, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I tell people, I was like, hey, look, I'm going to tell you something right now, and you're not going to believe me. You can call whoever you want to call to confirm it, and sometimes you just got to lose a few offers before you realize, hey, like he wasn't just trying to get me to like, take my pants down in this offer and
sure.
go in like a crazy person and waive an inspection. And I never want to see anybody do it. I never want to see anybody do it. And something I learned from Paul Gallagher actually was like, it's like, I work for the transaction. I don't work for the transaction. Totally minces words there. Very different meaning. So I work for my client, not for the transaction, right? And that is such a great philosophy. And okay. So one of my worst experiences on a home inspection, and it's happened a few times, is when someone's dad, their know-it-all dad, shows up. They're buying the house, and Susie's dad shows up. Comes out of the car, pops out of his truck looking real angry. Like he's got a point to prove.
Probably has a tape measure, hard hat, and, a drill in his hand. Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh man. If I wish I could tell you how many times I've had, it's specifically like first time home buyers, either dad or uncle. Uncle's an HVAC tech or something. So he's like, knows everything about the house. Right. But no, man, I've tried, early on I was like terrified that, the dad or somebody was going to come and they were going to be, the previous contractor or something like that, home builder that just knows everything. But I got to the point where I was like, if I start to educate this person or make them feel included or like say, hey, you turn on that bathtub faucet, flush this toilet, check a few things for me, then they feel important, right? And so then you kind of become friends. And so what I'll do is just basically explain everything as I'm going through the house of what I'm doing, show them everything. And they're either going to be like, oh yeah, I'm into this. And, the inspection is going to maybe take 5 hours, or they'll get tired of me talking to them and they'll go go do their own thing. And, but yeah, that's a bit of a pet peeve as far as inspections go, but I've gotten a lot of compliments from those people too at the end of the inspection, like thank you for taking the time just to talk with me.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is like people don't want to get gotcha'd. They don't like people have had bad experiences with people that just don't really do their job well. Yeah. That just kind of want to like take the easy way out.
Absolutely.
And that's unfortunate that people kind of just suck at what they do.
Yeah.
But it's cool, right? Like you got a lot of different people you get to meet on the job. Oh, sure. Just like I do.
Yep.
And you get to show up and show them your worth in a sense.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure being a real estate agent as well, like no two agents, no two home inspectors are the same. Like I remember one of my home inspection mentors saying the guy that trained him, essentially they would pull up to a house. If they were there longer than 30 minutes, then, something was wrong. He luckily he changed his mindset on doing home inspections, but I'm sure there are still a few folks out there like that. But you definitely don't want to get gotcha'd for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's intimidating, right? And I've had people on both sides of it. Some people are like, I don't care. Like, I'll buy it. Not worried at all. Right. Like, this is good. My shaman told me I'm good to go on this house.
Sure, right?
So no worries. And then other people that are absolutely terrified, and they'll see like a little crack in the foundation, and they're like, "Oh, dude, no, I gotta bail out. I gotta get out of here. I gotta avoid this contract. I'm done." And I'm like, well, Matt just pulled out the infrared. He did what he did. He's not a foundation expert, which again, one of those little rules.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think, one of the most important things is, and I'm sure you do this in your business as well, is making sure that your client is in the right mindset. Because a lot of folks, of course, in how you talk to your client, I guess you could say, you got first time home buyer. Obviously, they've never been through the process. You got a client who was a contractor or something like that, or maybe they're real handy. Maybe they've owned 5 or 6 different houses. It's putting them in the right mindset before once you get started. You're looking through the house. It's okay. Do I know what this client is going to be looking for, or do they know nothing? And I need to kind of tell them, okay, this is how this is going to be. And then the way you kind of explain what you find.
Yeah, the communication part. Yeah, communication part is huge, absolutely huge. And that's why I almost want to refuse to let anybody get a home inspection without them being there for it. Right. Because on the tail end, if you don't show up for your home inspection, you get this report back, and you got to talk to Matt through it hits way different.
It can be misinterpret
what's really not that deep. That's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. A lot of folks will get, an inspection report and they're like, oh, it's, whatever, 20, 30, 40, 50 pages. There's a lot of filler in there. Like, it's not all, there's not 50 pages of bad things with your house, right? There's, limitations. There, we usually include the standards that you see, that we follow, just so you have that there while you're reviewing your report. But it can absolutely be intimidating. And the way things are worded, recommend somebody come take a look at this. Whereas if you're there, we could say, okay, it might be a good idea to have somebody fix this or take a look at it. But also at the same time, how handy are you? You could probably do this on your own. And so, again, it kind of comes down to, what are their abilities? What's their experience with buying a home, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not, it's your opportunity to do your due diligence, right? Which is why it's better from a buyer perspective right now to not have as fierce competition where you got to waive things and you feel really pressured. It's still a lot of pressure. Don't get me wrong.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Stuff. But if you get a report back and it says, hey, I recommend a qualified contractor to come look at this. It's not fun to wait again. And you're hoping, man, I hope this thing comes back clean.
Yeah.
And we're good to go. And then, we've had chimney specialists have to come out. When I just did, we had to get an electrical specialist out. But that's an opportunity, right? That's an opportunity for you to, one, know what you're buying.
Right.
Two, see what the condition is. And then, can't get mad at Matt because Matt literally is a home inspector. He's not inspect every single thing about a home inspector.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. It's absolutely. I mean, it's, what's going on that particular day when the home inspection's happening. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously there's things that, can get overlooked, it happens to everybody. But yeah, I mean, the main thing is that we're there to just kind of reduce your liability in buying the house. So.
Reduce, not guaranteed.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody's perfect, obviously.
Yeah.
So, stuff happens sometimes, but,
yeah, they don't have an AI to scan the house, right?
Yeah, right.
Like something out of Iron Man where you just hey Jarvis, make sure this house is perfect, and I just
exactly
scans the whole thing.
Yep, full X-ray and
yeah. But it's a great thing to have, especially when someone has the qualities, right? So I guess that's a good question. It's from you and your experience, what natural inclinations or qualities, maybe they're really detail oriented, it's not just to me, it's even for me, I think like you said, no two people are the same, no two professionals are the same. For me, I think I'm really analytical, blah, 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 but I'm kind of curious, what do you think as a general thing is a good quality or set of skills or whatever to have as an inspector?
Sure. I think a couple things that I would say would be one, attention to detail, right? Because I mean, your job is to look at every square inch of this house, but you're going to have maybe, 4 other people with eyes looking at this house too. And, if you miss one tiny little thing that maybe they feel like you should be calling out, then, okay, they feel like your credibility is going down. But the other one I would say, which is one that I've kind of always had, I'm trying to kind of get out of it a little bit, but was just kind of being a worrywart. So I have little kids. So in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, is this something that I would worry about if I had my kids live in this house, or if my mom was buying this house, would I, is it something I would call out or I would want someone to know about?
Right.
So I think having those kind of qualities, obviously having backgrounds in any of the trades is helpful. But the attention to detail thing is a big one for sure.
Sure. Then I guess we kind of talked about communication skills too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's a way to appropriately explain okay, you need a structural engineer, right? Instead of saying this house is about to fall down, you need to call somebody immediately, right? So, you laugh at that, but from what I've heard from other real estate agents is there's some folks that are oh, this could burst into flames at any moment. You need to call somebody now out here. Whereas,
I think you think that's hey, they've had a strike against them, and they're just really maybe they don't trust the client. They're
possible,
they look at you listen, Susie, I know you're the type of to go and file a what do they call it in your business, right? They call it something or the other.
I mean,
they kick it back or
the deal killer, whoever. Yeah, I'm trying to think of.
You're good. You're good. What was I about to go? Yeah, I actually have a story here. It's first deal I ever had. Right, it was actually referred to me by the agent who was representing the buyer. He doesn't do dual agency, which is you represent the buyer and the seller, which he just won't do that. Mm-hmm. We won't do that because you can't represent two parties objectively, right?
Yeah,
you can be the nicest guy in the world, but
it's almost not fair, right?
You can't be loyal to two different parties when they have different objectives.
Yeah.
Everybody could be Mr. Rogers on the transaction, and we're still not doing it. But he calls me to do this transaction, and he says, "Hey, I got a buyer for my listing. You write the offer. He's cool. It's this guy, right? I said, okay, cool. This is great. Like, awesome, man. I'm just showing up. My first deal. And I say first deal. I had experience up to that point. But we go in the basement on inspection, and they fix the foundation, right? You had the I-beams. Looked like they did everything just right, you know? Problem is the owner of that home is a contractor, a really good one too.
Yeah.
Really good. So he gets everything done himself. Okay. His own crews come out. They didn't inspect everything. Right. Because you have like certain rules on like getting it re-inspected, which, my client just didn't want to like be stuck on resale to explain that stuff. Right. And just for him, he just didn't want to, he just didn't feel good about it. And based off what he's telling me, he's like, V, what do you think I should do? And I was like, you should look at the front door, turn 180 degrees the other way, and run like hell. Right. and that's the style of communication that me and him had built up to. Sure. And he appreciated it because he knew, like, I definitely had skin in the game, and like the person on the other end was literally the person who handed me this opportunity. But again, you're loyal to your client. Yep. You're not loyal to the transaction. Sure. And ultimately, even if I would have thought in that situation, they're like, dude, this isn't that big of a deal. Like he did everything right. He even got pictures. Like he didn't but it's not about what I think, right? It's just like, I'm here to do it as objectively as possible and hand over that information. Right.
That's important, and I think like in your, the way you're saying is, that client is now like, okay, we're buds. Like he cares about me. That's all I need to know,
Yeah. Well, shoot, Matt. I think we've covered a lot today, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
I see your phone's going crazy. I'm sure you got like 50 inspections over there, waiting for you to jump on.
Right. Yeah, my phone's always buzzing.
Man, I appreciate you coming out. It's been a blast. I want to make sure you get a chance to kind of tell people where they can reach out to you if they need everything from a radon inspection, a home inspection, anything else you do. Yeah. So please, if you will.
Absolutely, yeah. So you can go online. It's a little bit long, but it's WilliamsInspectionServices.com. You can book online there if you want. You can give me a call, 540-533-7475. Call, text, anything like that. It's a good way to reach me. I appreciate you for having me.
Appreciate you, man.
Hey,
take care, man.
All right, you too. Whew. That's fun.
That was awesome, dude.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Hopefully,